Hi there, knife people. Hello, lady and gentlemen. Long video, short intro. Let's tell our story. One quick thing though, I started posting on Instagram. It's CBRX today, CBRX_today. This story began about 6 weeks ago. A company that sells knives on Amazon called Fintiso asked me to review their knife and offered a free sample. I rejected the sample. Instead, I bought a knife from Amazon myself. I did that because on my channel, I don't affiliate with knife companies. Anyway, I did the independent review of the knife, and it turned out to be a good one. The knife, that is, and the review. The company liked it so much, they offered me another free knife to review. My first reaction was to say no, but and by the way, that series I already have is called Cobra. It was like 53 bucks, but unfortunately they sold out of aluminum handle version after my video came out. And now they have green micarta and two versions with carbon fiber handles and S35 VN steel for more money, basically more than twice, 139 bucks right now. This kukri looking knife is extremely convenient to use, as you just saw, on any EDC tasks. Food prep as well, anything from cutting bread to spreading butter. But I digress. I appreciate that the boxes, while nice to touch, are made out of recyclable or maybe even recycled cardboard. I don't approve of putting pouches in these boxes. These are pretty useless to me and 99% of the end user. Let me know in the comments how you feel about cardboard versus those polyester pouches. That's the one they sent me, blue hard anodized aluminum. And it's quite hefty, definitely over 4 ounces. And I think it's because it has full liners, even though it's a pretty thick slab of aluminum on top of it. Action is decent. There's no flipper, just the thumb studs. Button lock, similar to Malibu, which is a little bit of a disappointment. I don't think the Malibu style plunger locks, button locks, are robust enough. I used to characterize button locks as light duty. However, recently Remet, Riyadh, and now Fintiso came up with a much stronger button locks than the Malibu generation knives. Don't buy pretty much any ProTech with a button lock. They do this. That sound you heard? That was a flipper top breaking off. And to me, that matters more than a fidget factor or such nuisance as acoustics. Meanwhile, I would like to point out that I am comparing a randomly purchased knife from Amazon with the one that they sent me. That's the key takeaway. And by the way, the knife they sent me was shipped from the Amazon warehouse. They had no control of which box was being picked off the shelf. So here it is. This black knife has G10 textured handles. Feels a lot grippier than the aluminum one. And it has a coated blade. I'm not quite sure what this coating is. They don't advertise it. It's similar to the Glock slide. The blade is advertised as 14C28N, and the price is 43 bucks. Although when I was shopping for one, they were only available for $65 paired with another knife. So technically, I got another knife for 22 bucks. I'll show it to you later. The texture on the aluminum is a lot slicker than the G10. And the action on the G10 version is very similar, identical really, to the aluminum version. So kudos to them for not gouging the price on the aluminum like some companies do, consider aluminum more premium. I kind of find it refreshing that they admit that from the technology standpoint, there's basically no labor or material cost difference. I'm looking here at how the lock is constructed. So the Cobra series knives have that extra stop pin. They're basically two stop pins, and that's why they're extremely robust. If you watch that other video, you know I spine whacked the heck out of it and it did not unlock. This knife has a single pin. It's like I said, it's basically a Malibu clone with the altered shape. That plunger engages a conical grind on the tang of the blade on both knives. They are really actually well machined, similar to the Cobra. This is called the harp. I don't know why. I don't see the musical instrument association here. Fit and finish, hardware, quality feel very similar to CIVIVI and Sencut brands. Wait a second, I just got this Qibit, CIVIVI Qibit from Walmart just a couple days ago. Imagine that. That will be the easiest comparison ever. I don't even have to order anything. Yeah, Walmart now sells 4 CIVIVI models, including this and Elementum with a liner lock. I forgot what the other two are. There are tons of videos about it already, but here they are side by side. First impression, either People's Republic of China came up with a national standard on making a button lock knives, or these two knives were designed and fabricated at the same facility. Well, instead of speculating, let me point out the similarity. Pivot logo is embossed in a very similar way. The thumb studs attached identically with rivets, near identical hardware, except for the pocket clip. Wait, let's do a quick comparison here. So this feels lighter. The Qibit feels a lot lighter because the harp has full-length steel liners with lightning holes. Harp weighs 4.4 ounces, give or take. And the Qibit 2.8 ounces. So basically about 1.5 ounce difference. Very similar hardware. The finish texture is slightly different. Colors are not exactly the same, but very close. Maybe it's because the texture, hard anodizing, it's basically translucent or partially translucent. And the finish of the handle can actually change how the color appears. The blade length on the harp is just a hair over 3 inches, and on the Qibit is just under 3 inches. I can't get over how similar all the hardware is. Let's take them apart and see if the blades interchange. CIVIVI's blade is 87 thousandths thick, 2.25 millimeters, and on the harp, the blade is 130 thousandths thick, or 3.3 millimeters. Both of these knives have T8 pivot hardware as well as the assembly screws, and their pocket clips are mounted with T6 screws. Now here I'll take a moment and tell you, when people complain about T6 screws, what they don't take into account is the depth of thread matters. So if you don't have a thick material, you're trying to get as many threads as possible into that thin material. T6 works actually better and provides better compression than a T8 because T8 fastener would have fewer threads going through the same thickness of material, and you would not get a good compression or good clamping force there. That's what screws do. They create compression with two parts that try to hold together. So pitch matters. And you don't need to be an engineer to know that. But somehow bashing T6 hardware became a popular topic among, shall we say, less technically inclined reviewers. So while I enjoyed not having to swap the tip on my driver assembling these knives, I would say this, T6 has its place, let's say on a thin knife like a bug out, and then T8 on a more robust knives like these. Very similar pocket clips. The harp has a very sleek anodizing as compared to Qibit. And that was my complaint on the Cobra too. I wish it was just a little bit grippier, maybe textured even. I'm going to use my microphone to illustrate. You can't feel the difference, so maybe you can hear it. Let me know in the comments if you find this method useful. A quick summary on the blade interchangeability? No. And now I'm ready, and I know you're ready for the Hype Smasher test. Why I call it Hype Smasher specifically because of button locks and RAM locks, the early version of RAM locks, that were failing the spine whack test. So I wanted to devise a method of testing knives repeatably and consistently, regardless of the make and model. And this is what I came up with. And I try to set up the knife as close to the pivot as possible. And this bar I just adjusted, it's a solid bar embedded in a rubber hose to imitate the grip of your hand. And the handle also rests on rubber covered solid bars. That gives me a very close approximation of human hand. This is how it works. This big thing is a slightly modified arbor press. I modified it so that the ram or the bar can fold freely. And in my earlier video, I calculated that the striking force is 80 pounds of force, not weight. It only weighs 2.5 pounds, but the striking force due to Newton's laws of physics is 80. Boom. Unfortunately, the Fintiso harp unlocked. A 40th percentile male can easily generate 80 pounds of back striking force with their hand. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to torture the knife anymore. There's no need to illustrate any farther that this knife, regardless of its robust construction, can only be described as medium to light duty knife. What I'm doing here is I'm showing you that it still functions just fine. There's no damage to the knife that I can see or feel. I would probably not choose this knife as my EDC, but to be fair, for example, Malibu by ProTech also fails this test. And the reason I chose to not test the blue knife is because this will be a giveaway and I paid for the black one out of my own pocket, so I'm going to keep it. And now we're going to give the CIVIVI Qibit the same treatment. I keep pivot to striking point distance at 2.5 inches, giving me 200 foot-pound at the pivot. I protect the blade with a hard rubber piece. It did not unlock. Good on CIVIVI. Let's try it again. No unlocking this time either. And I'm setting up for the third strike if the knives don't fail on the first or the second strike. And now I'm going to test the Cobra because I am actually carrying this knife in earnest. I spine whacked it with a stick earlier just to make sure it doesn't fail. But now I want to test it at the same level of scrutiny as the others. Because of the downward angle of the blade, it ended up sitting pretty close to the surface of the bench, maybe, 3/16 of an inch away from the bench. To maintain the same free fall speed, I hold the ram a little lower. It did not unlock. I held the ram a little higher this time to accelerate it to higher velocity, and it didn't unlock. And for the third strike, I'm raising the ram even higher. So instead of about 3.5 miles per hour, I probably struck it with about 4.2 miles per hour. That's how much of a difference this change in height makes. Basically, I'm going to call this knife a pass, as in it passed the test. Here I'm going to do the hardness test using my leap style tester. with a blade provided by Fintiso to me, the uncoated one. And this will be 5 strikes and then average. I already showed this method in several videos, so I'm not going to explain how it works and why I think it works well. But you can watch those videos, I'll provide links. So I get 59.5 average. You probably wonder what in the world Kershaw Iridium and Mini Iridium have to do with all these knives that I showed you today. I think if these knives are not siblings, at a minimum they're first cousins. If you feel like I'm strongly implying that Fintiso has some kind of business relationship with the CIVIVI company, you're correct. That's what I'm speculating or implying. This is the knife that came with the harp that I bought. It's called the Rook. So I estimate it cost me $22 to $25 to buy this knife. It's a flipper, front flipper, with a liner lock. We've got a contour, two-tone G10 handle. And for your meager $25, you get diamonds made out of pure zirconium. It's a lanyard attachment pin with a hole through it, kind of like on Chris Reeve Omnizome. I think that's where they got that idea. It's cracking me up. Takes me right back into the 90s. So come on, don't get swung on. It's the knick-knack, paddywhack, steel. Let's sum up. So between the two Fintiso harps, for my personal use, I would pick the black version because it feels grippier in the hand and it corresponds better to the, medium duty nature of the knife. If I were to pick between the Qibit and Fintiso, that's a toss-up. The price difference between the two is $25, and as you just saw, for $25 I can get a whole other knife. So the rational part of my brain says still the harp over the CIVIVI Qibit. And as far as harp or Qibit for that matter versus the Cobra, definitely the Cobra. Come on, don't get swung on. It's the knick-knack, paddywhack, steel riding Cadillac.